Today we're gonna see fantasy book recommendations for this fall. So we're gonna see a little bit of a blend of cozy, autumny vibes to dark forest to gloomy settings and also dark academia. Let's start. And here we'll see 3 fantasy book recommendations that will give you all of these autumny vibes, and we will start with this standalone that it's defined as high fantasy with low stakes, legends and Lattes. This is a very light-hearted, hopeful read, and it's gonna be all around the vibes. You will be surrounded by coffee, by cinnamon rolls, and overall these very hopeful feeling. So it's a very good pick if you are in this mood of having something that is just nice, you know, that it's easy. But I don't recommend for someone that really is expecting kind of like a deep plot. And we will follow an ogre that was an amazing warrior, but now she has this dream of open a coffee shop. And what we will do is exactly follow her story since the first day that she decides to buy a place and start building the coffee shop. And we will see along the way how she makes different friends, and you know, she also faces some hardships, some enemies. Honestly, it's just a very warm-up story. We move now to An Enchantment of Ravens, and this is the book that I will define just as autumn. Kind of like mandatory if you really want fall, standalones and fae. I don't recommend this if you are really into character development, because actually the characters here are not really developed and the relationships that they build are really superficial, and at times it comes like an instant thing. But if you are in for a very fast story, you know, almost like a quest kind of vibe, then I guess this is a very good moment to pick this up. An Enchantment of Ravens tells the story of this world where the fae don't do anything because they might die, and for those kind of things they have humans, but these humans are really valued for that. And we will have our girl that is an artist, so she draws paintings from the fae, and one day she's tasked to draw the Autumn Prince, and while doing so something happens that puts her on the flee and on this journey with this Autumn Prince. We will move from a world where there's always a spring to another realm where there's majority of time autumn, with the trees turning red, gold, that kind of really cozy autumny feeling. And if you like also an easy romance between the characters, this is also it. But if you like characters that are complex and, you know, like mature, this is maybe not the one for you. And last but not least, here we have A Curse of Dark and Lonely, so the Cursebreakers trilogy. I honestly loved this first book so much. Book 2 and book 3 not as much, but although you don't have the complete story until you read the 3 books, I did feel that first book could almost be read as a standalone. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling where we will following our girl that has cerebral palsy, and it's a portal fantasy, so we will be following our girl as she gets into this castle where the man a beast lives, and he is cursed to relive the autumn of his 18th birthday all of his life until the curse is broken. I thought this to be a very interesting Beauty and the Beast retelling. Really recommend if you like these stories when you're not really sure if the bad one it's really bad, or books that make you feel like you're sympathizing for someone where you shouldn't. But I do not recommend if you're sick of Beauty and the Beast retellings, because although I really enjoyed it and the story had some twists and turns, it was mainly that. Dark theme fantasies, I love them, especially when there's this forest element also within the story, because in here we'll have another 3 book recommendations. The first one, it's a Nettle Bone. This is a very short standalone, and we will see this forest, but also this little bit of folklore. It almost reads as a fairy tale, but it's kind of like a darker fairy tale. The tone of this book though, it's not really dark, it's pretty humorous, and we will see how our character is fairly naive, and she will meet other characters that are almost sweet, although the things and the scenery that we see, it's pretty dark. So it's such a good blend, and I think that this is a perfect read for a rainy, autumny day. And the idea of a girl chasing almost an impossible mission really sounds good to you. But I do not recommend if you do not like dark themes, because although it's not spooky, it might get creepy a little bit. So if you're like a little bit squeamish, maybe that's not the book for you. But this tells the story of this princess that she really does not believe herself to be important, and one day she discovers that her sister is being very badly treated, and as a result of that she starts this quest of saving her sister at the same time that she protects the kingdom from war. Then we have another foresty story with For the Wolf. This is in theory a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but honestly this is so loose. I do not really treat these as such. Honestly, one of the books that I'm growing to love more and more and more as time is passing. Really read it if the idea of these two sisters that really love each other are going to be separated because each of them had a very different fate. One promised to the forest and another one to the throne and a little bit to the shadows. If that idea sounds good to you, and if you're compelled about a forest that it's in perpetual autumn and twilight, then this is the book for you. But if you are seeking hard magic system or world building that it's really explained, this is not for you, because although this story talks about this land that it's protected from the monsters that lie in the forest by a wolf, and this wolf has a little bit of magic, we will not get a lot of clarity on why this is happening. But I really love the story of this second daughter being promised to the wolf to protect the people, and the story gets darker and more deep than what it seems, so really recommend. And we'll conclude this list with Keeper of Night. This is currently an unfinished duology, but hear me out, because there's so many great things in this book. We will follow this girl that is half Reaper, half Shinigami, and it seems that these different entities of that have very different powers, and one day she will be displaying the wrong magic and she will be expelled from London. She will need to run away to Japan, and while getting there she will start these different trials, and so we will see different monsters and we will see how this character will need to prove her worth. So really recommend if you like Japanese folklore and if you don't mind a story getting dark. But if you're not a fan of great characters, honestly this might be not for you, because this character makes really questionable choices and the way in which she does it will make you like and also the different creatures that she will need to face are very creepy, very spooky. And here we will start with a world that is surrounded by ash and that it's ruled by the evil one, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So really recommend if you like hard magic systems, because in here we will see the allumency, which means that people it's able to ingest metals, and these metals grant you different powers. So from flying to changing your emotions. Don't recommend as much if you're not really in a mood for a heist, because at its core the first book it's a heist. We will talk about this main character that is sick of this bad guy, the Lord Ruler, ruling, and so one day he decides to take something from him and he will start collecting these people for this almost impossible mission. And we go also to the Lycanus trilogy with the first one, The Shadow of What Was Lost. Here I really must say that I've just read this one, but I've really enjoyed it. Really read it if you're compelled by this story where we will be having these augurs, these people that were able to tell the future, and one day all of them were killed, and we have now people that it's able to do a little bit of magic, but they are really kind of like enslaved. They really need to follow different rules, and one day we'll have one of our guys that has a little bit more magic that it seems, and he will really trigger a set of events throughout this whole land. Don't recommend as much if you really like very character-driven stories, because here I believe it's a little bit of a blend, but honestly so much stuff happens, like it's really plot driven, but we see different elements. The people gets really similar at times, and there are moments in which you do not know what is happening or who is bad and who is good. So if you like stories that are easy, that are clear, this is not the one for you. Also, it's a little bit of a chunky, but honestly I really enjoyed it. I thought it was this beautiful blend of a somewhat hopeful story, but also turning really into a dark and really desperate one. And last but not least in this mood, we have Book of Night by Holly Black. This is her adult fantasy debut. It's actually urban fantasy, and I really recommend if you are looking for a character that it's really nuanced, that she has done a little bit of bad choices in the past. She's trying to move away from those, and you know, she has also a little bit of ambition, and one day she discovers this magic that can be done through shadows. So if you're interested about the idea of a world where people can do magic through the shadows, through this modification, and that there are different elements, and you know, that part it's explored, really give this book a go. But if you really like hard magic systems where things are pretty clear, and you know, where the magic it's the core of the story, this might not be the one for you, because although we will get to see the magic shadow at play, we won't get as much understanding to really be able to know how it's performed. Nothing screams harder full than Dark Academia. And we will start with the Atlas 6, and this is a story of this man that every now and then he collects different mages and brings him to this school that is in reality the Library of Alexandria. And once these different mages get into this library, they are now almost in charge of it, and they will need to protect it from monsters, while at the same time they will need to learn and also pass some different trials. So if a soft magic system where we are going to be able to see very different magics at play, from elemental magic to being able to persuade to almost change reality, interests you, really give this a try. But if you like either character-driven or really plot-driven stories, I do not feel that this is going to be for you, because I really believe this is a little bit more on defense book. We will have 6 characters and we will get to see a different chapter of them, but we won't get enough depth to know them, to understand them, to really care for them. We go now to for that it's perfect for fall overall, and that it's Bee Shrub with a Vicious. This is a concluded duology, and we will see here this story of 2 best friends that are turned into enemies. And so if you're intrigued by this premise and also about the concept of playing with near-death experiences, then this is the book for you. But if you do not like great characters, or you do not like your plots to have flashbacks and just move forward, then this might not get to you, because it had a little bit of a unique pacing. We will see how these 2 best friends one day are turned into enemies, and there's some event coming, but until this moment happens we will also get flashbacks of all of the story of the 2. At times we'll get a little bit creepy, a little bit spooky, not much, but it will give you this cold night vibes as well. And at last here we will also see the Estarless Sea, perfect for lovers of fairy tale, of whimsical books, of characters that are obsessed about something, and really the vibes of the libraries, of being immersed in this world where there's magic, but magic resides in books. If you like this, really this is a book for you. But this is also a story within a story within a story. So if you tend to prefer books with a linear plot line, this book won't give it to you. We will see this massive clockwork and everything. It's a piece that it's part of this engine, but the full vision of the engine just happens by the end, and I'm not really sure I completely saw it. And this follows the story of our boy that one day discovers a book that tells a story about his life, his own childhood, how he saw this wall, and this wall had a door that could be opened and that will get him into the Starless Sea, this world. So from that point onwards, he will do whatever it takes to find the origin of this book, and he will try to chase down also that door. And so while doing so, he will get into this ball when you need to wear a mask, he will get into different libraries, and so there's a lot of this vibe going on. So if you like all of what you're hearing, give this a try.